Before the sun rose, before the city fully woke up, a routine morning run turned into a crime that would shake an entire nation. Eliza Fletcher stepped outside expecting miles of quiet streets, steady breath, and the familiar rhythm of her route. What followed lasted only moments, but those moments changed everything. This was not random. This was not chaos. This was calculated. A vehicle slowed. A door opened. Surveillance cameras caught fragments, but not answers. Police would later describe the incident in careful language, choosing words that revealed just enough while holding back the rest. Why? Because from the very first hours, investigators understood something critical. Someone knew what they were doing. Questions surfaced immediately. Why that location? Why that exact time window? Why did the suspect act with such speed and such confidence? As the investigation unfolded, each update brought relief and dread at the same time. Evidence emerged. Timelines tightened. But with every confirmation came a deeper unease. Because clarity did not bring closure. It brought implications. The shocking truth is not just what happened, but how quickly it happened. And the most unsettling part? What investigators uncovered afterward suggested this case was never as simple as it first appeared. Stay with this story. Not for speculation, not for rumor, but because every verified detail reveals how a single morning exposed gaps in safety, assumptions about routine, and the thin line between normal life and irreversible loss. This is not just a case. It is a warning written in facts. According to public records and verified reporting, Eliza Fletcher was known in her community long before her name became linked to a criminal investigation. She was a kindergarten teacher in Memphis, someone whose daily work centered on structure, care, and consistency. Friends and colleagues described her as disciplined, kind, and deeply routine-oriented. She believed in early mornings' quiet focus and showing up prepared for her students and for her family. There is a deep weight in knowing that her last morning began exactly the way so many others had. That is where empathy enters the story, because nothing about her routine suggested danger. Police confirmed that Eliza was a wife and a mother of 2 young children, balancing professional responsibility with family life. According to reports, she followed a predictable daily schedule, including early morning runs along familiar routes. That detail mattered immediately to investigators, because routine creates patterns, and patterns create timelines. Witnesses later stated that her consistency helped narrow the time window within minutes. And yet, that same predictability became a vulnerability. That realization is difficult to sit with. Why did this disappearance command attention so quickly? One reason is scale. Law enforcement acknowledged that within hours, multiple agencies were coordinating efforts. Another reason is clarity. This was not a missing person case built on uncertainty. Surveillance footage, timestamps, and vehicle data created urgency almost immediately. According to police briefings, the case moved faster than most because there was no doubt something had gone wrong. There is a quiet shock in how fast normal life turned into a nationwide alert. In later statements, officials emphasized that Eliza's role as a teacher shaped public response. Parents recognized her. Educators related to her. Runners understood her habits. The case became personal to people who never met her. That collective connection mattered, because it sustained public attention long enough for evidence to surface. Behind the scenes, records show that her family cooperated fully with investigators from the start. No confusion. No delay. According to verified sources, they provided timelines, access to personal devices, and background details immediately. That level of clarity removed doubt and kept the focus where it belonged. What makes this even more unsettling is what police would later confirm. The speed of the crime did not match the simplicity of her life. That contrast remains one of the most disturbing elements. In my opinion, this is why her story resonates beyond the facts. She represents routine, trust, and predictability, things many people rely on to feel safe. When those foundations collapse, it forces uncomfortable questions. Could this have happened anywhere else? Would anyone have noticed sooner? What does safety actually mean? As this chapter closes, one truth remains clear. Eliza Fletcher was not defined by the crime that took her life. She was defined by the life she lived before it, and that distinction matters. What do you think made this case move so fast compared to others? Share your thoughts below and stay with us, because the next phase of the investigation raises questions even authorities did not expect. How did minutes become evidence? And why does every second still matter? According to verified reporting, Eliza Fletcher left her home in the early hours of September 2nd, 2022, following a routine that had not changed for months. Police confirmed she departed shortly before 4:30 a.m., wearing standard running gear, carrying no phone in her hand, and heading to a familiar jogging route near the University of Memphis area. This detail is important because investigators later relied on routine behavior to reconstruct the timeline with unusual precision. There is something deeply unsettling about knowing a normal morning began exactly on schedule. According to police statements, there was nothing erratic about her movements. Traffic camera data later confirmed limited vehicle activity during that window. Investigators stated that the street lighting was low but functional, and several nearby cameras captured partial movement rather than clear faces. According to reports, this is why law enforcement focused first on timestamps instead of identity. The timeline, not the suspect, became the lead. At approximately 4:20 to 4:30 a.m., police believe the critical moment occurred. Witnesses later stated that a brief disturbance was visible on surveillance footage, lasting only seconds. That narrow window will become the most analyzed span of time in the entire investigation. A few seconds changed everything. According to Memphis police, Eliza did not deviate from her expected route. That consistency allowed investigators to narrow the disappearance window to less than 5 minutes. Officials later confirmed that this precision helped rule out several early theories. It was not a prolonged event. It was not random wandering. It happened fast. From an investigative perspective, speed became a defining factor. From a human perspective, that speed is difficult to process. Newer court filings and investigative summaries released after the initial arrest clarified that traffic camera synchronization played a key role. According to official documents, multiple cameras were aligned to verify the exact order of events, correcting early assumptions made in the first press briefings. This update did not change the outcome, but it refined the understanding of how quickly the crime unfolded. One question still lingers: how does a routine collapse so completely in moments? In my opinion, this is where the timeline becomes more than data. It becomes emotional evidence. Every confirmed minute represents a chance that never came. Every verified second shows how little margin there was for interruption. That realization adds weight to facts that might otherwise feel technical. Police confirmed that by sunrise, investigators already understood the sequence. What they did not yet understand was the motive. That gap between knowing when and knowing why would define the next phase of case. As this reconstructed timeline concludes, the facts are clear. The last morning followed a pattern until it did not. And that break in routine is where the investigation truly begins. What detail in this timeline stands out to you the most? Share your thoughts below and stay with us, because the next chapter examines what investigators uncovered after the timeline was locked in. What exactly did the cameras reveal, and why did silence between frames matter more than motion? According to police confirmation, the turning point in the Eliza Fletcher investigation came when surveillance footage was recovered from the area along her jogging route. Officials stated that the video did not capture a clear face or a full sequence, but it did confirm something far more serious. This was no longer a disappearance. It was an abduction. That realization landed heavily, because once the footage was reviewed, there was no longer room for doubt. Police explained that the camera showed a vehicle slowing near the roadway, followed by a brief disturbance lasting only seconds. According to reports, the interaction was fast, forceful, and ended with Eliza no longer visible in frame. Investigators emphasized that the short duration was itself significant. This was not an argument. This was not confusion. It was a controlled act. Witness statements later supported what the camera could not fully show. According to law enforcement briefings, nearby residents did not hear prolonged noise or calls for help. That absence became evidence. The quiet suggested surprise and speed. There is a deep fear in realizing how little time there was to react. Police confirmed that the footage did not show a license plate clearly. It did not provide a facial image. It did not reveal where the vehicle went next. What it did show was timing. Exact seconds. Exact movement. That data allowed investigators to synchronize other cameras across the city. According to official updates, this alignment corrected early assumptions and narrowed the suspect vehicle's path. One question followed immediately. How much can be learned from what is missing? In later court filings and post-arrest summaries, investigators clarified that the public initially saw only still frames. The full video was far more disturbing. According to authorities, it was withheld to protect the integrity of the case and the dignity of the victim. That decision was deliberate. Transparency was balanced with responsibility. From a human perspective, the footage changes how the case feels. From an investigative perspective, it changes how the case moves. In my opinion, this is where fear replaces uncertainty. Before the video, there was hope rooted in possibility. After the video, there was urgency rooted in fact. Police no longer asked if something happened. They focused on who acted and how they escaped so quickly. Officials later stated that the video disproved several online theories within hours. This was not a random encounter. This was not accidental. According to police, the suspect's actions showed intent, even though motive was still unknown at that stage. As this section closes, the evidence is clear. The cameras did not answer every question, but they answered the most important one. Eliza Fletcher was taken against her will, in plain sight, in seconds. What part of this footage revelation stands out to you the most? Share your thoughts respectfully below, and stay with us. In the next chapter, investigators follow the trail beyond the cameras, and what they uncover next reshapes the entire case. When a scene speaks without words, what clues matter most, and which silences are louder? According to police confirmation, the first physical evidence in the Eliza Fletcher case was discovered along the jogging route shortly after the disappearance window was established. Investigators recovered personal items believed to belong to Eliza near the roadway. Officials stated these items were not randomly scattered. Their placement suggested a brief but forceful interruption rather than a prolonged struggle. There is a quiet unease in knowing that objects can mark the last free moment of a life. According to reports, law enforcement secured the area immediately and treated it as a primary scene rather than a secondary drop site. That decision mattered. Police confirmed that forensic teams focused on ground disturbance, item positioning, and trace material. This was not about what was visible. It was about what could be transferred in seconds. One detail raised concern early. There was no sign of a prolonged altercation. That absence shaped the investigation. Authorities stated that the evidence suggested speed and control. Items left behind indicated that Eliza was separated from her belongings quickly. According to official briefings, there was no indication she voluntarily removed or placed these items. This supported the conclusion already drawn from surveillance footage. What investigators did not find became just as important. Police confirmed there was no abandoned phone at the scene and no personal container that would suggest preparation for a long run beyond routine. That absence limited several early theories. It also narrowed the timeline even further. From a human point of view, it is painful to imagine how suddenly normalcy ended. Later forensic updates revealed that trace evidence collected from the area was consistent with brief contact rather than extended resistance. According to investigative summaries, this supported the idea that the suspect acted decisively. The physical scene did not show chaos. It showed interruption. One question follows naturally. How much can be learned from what is not there? In subsequent court filings and official statements, police clarified that the physical evidence allowed them to focus their search corridor rapidly. This was not a wide net. It was a tightening circle. According to reports, that narrowing played a direct role in how quickly investigators identified a suspect and connected locations. In my opinion, this is one of the most disturbing aspects of the case. Physical evidence is often imagined as dramatic or obvious. Here it was subtle. A shoe, a sign of movement, a missing object. Small details carried enormous weight. Investigators later stated that the condition of the recovered items suggested they were dropped during the act itself, not staged afterward. That distinction mattered legally and strategically. It removed doubt about intent and timing. As this section closes, the forensic picture becomes clearer. What was left behind did not tell the whole story, but it told enough to move the investigation forward with confidence. The scene did not scream. It whispered, and investigators listened. Which piece of physical evidence do you think mattered most in narrowing the search? Share your thoughts respectfully below, and stay with us, because the next chapter follows where that evidence led investigators next. When devices never sleep, how did data begin to speak for the investigation? According to verified reporting, the digital phase of the Eliza Fletcher investigation began once physical clues established a narrow time window. Police confirmed that analysts immediately turned to phone records, traffic cameras, and vehicle data to reconstruct movement beyond the initial scene. This shift mattered because digital evidence does not rely on memory. It records quietly, minute by minute. There is a heavy feeling in knowing that technology may have seen what people could not. Police stated that Eliza's phone activity stopped abruptly during the disappearance window. According to reports, there were no outgoing calls, no messages, and no movement pings after that point. Investigators explained that the sudden silence helped confirm the exact moment control was lost. The absence of digital activity became a timestamp. Then the focus widened. Traffic camera systems across multiple routes were synchronized to track a dark-colored vehicle seen near the scene. According to police briefings, analysts reviewed hundreds of clips to identify consistent movement patterns. The vehicle appeared briefly, disappeared, then reappeared farther along a different corridor. That sequence suggested intentional route selection rather than random driving. This is where anticipation replaced confusion. Phone data connected to the suspect later became central. According to court records, location data placed a device along the same path identified by cameras. Police confirmed that this alignment was not estimated. It was precise. Digital points matched physical locations within minutes of each other. That overlap strengthened probable cause. One unsettling question emerged. How often does technology already know the truth before people do? Vehicle movement data added another layer. Investigators confirmed that license plate readers and traffic sensors helped establish direction and timing, even when plates were not visible on camera. According to reports, this allowed law enforcement to predict likely destinations before ground teams arrived. From a human point of view, it is chilling to imagine a path forming in real time. Later updates revealed that digital mapping tools were used to eliminate alternate routes quickly. According to police statements, several early assumptions were discarded once data showed no corresponding movement. That correction mattered. It saved time. It focused resources. It reduced noise. In my opinion, this is where modern investigations feel both powerful and unsettling. Digital trails do not care about intent or emotion. They only record presence. And in this case, presence told a clear story. By the end of this phase, officials stated that the suspect's path was no longer theoretical. It was documented. Phones, cameras, and sensors formed a continuous chain. Each data point alone meant little. Together, they narrowed the search dramatically. As this section closes, the narrative shifts again. The investigation moved from possibility to pattern, from pattern to identification, and from identification to action. Which part of the digital trail do you think made the biggest difference here? Share your thoughts respectfully below and stay with us, because the next chapter examines how this data led investigators directly to a suspect and a location. When an investigation stops searching and starts accusing, what changes and what questions remain? According to police confirmation, the investigation into Eliza Fletcher reached a structural turning point when authorities publicly identified a suspect and made an arrest. After days of intensive evidence review, Memphis police announced that Cleta Henderson had been taken into custody. This was the first moment when the case moved from reconstruction to prosecution. There was relief in hearing a name. There was also restraint in how police presented it. According to official briefings, the arrest was based on a combination of surveillance footage, digital tracking, and physical evidence. Police confirmed that probable cause had been established through records rather than a single dramatic discovery. This mattered legally. Investigators emphasized that the case against the suspect was built step by step, supported by timestamps, vehicle data, and forensic links. The announcement was deliberate. Language was careful. Details were limited. Authorities stated that Henderson was initially charged in connection with the abduction. According to reports, additional charges followed as more evidence was analyzed. Police stressed that the arrest did not conclude the investigation. Instead, it redirected it. From that point forward, every piece of evidence would be examined under courtroom standards. For the public, this moment carried mixed emotions. Relief came from knowing someone was in custody. Unease came from realizing how much still had to be proven. Court records later confirmed that Henderson had prior interactions with law enforcement, information that quickly circulated online. Police addressed this directly, cautioning against assumptions. According to officials, past records alone do not secure convictions. Evidence does. That distinction became central as the case entered the judicial phase. One question surfaced immediately. Was this the only person involved? In subsequent statements, investigators clarified that the arrest was not based on speculation or pressure. According to police, digital movement data aligned with physical findings in a way that left little room for coincidence. This alignment strengthened the case, but did not eliminate the need for further verification. From a human perspective, the arrest marked a pause, not an end. In my opinion, this is one of the hardest moments in any true crime case. A name offers structure. It gives the public something solid, but it also demands patience. Justice is not declared at arrest. It is tested over time. Police confirmed that after the arrest, search efforts narrowed further and investigative resources shifted toward documentation, expert review, and prosecutorial preparation. The case tone changed. Briefings became quieter. Updates became procedural. As this chapter closes, the narrative clearly shifts. The search for what happened becomes a process of proving how and why it happened. The investigation does not stop. It transforms. Do you think the evidence presented at arrest was enough to inspire confidence? Or do you believe more questions remain at that stage? Share your thoughts respectfully below and stay with us, because the next chapter examines what investigators uncovered after the arrest, when the focus moved beyond one name to the full scope of accountability. When science enters a record, how does uncertainty begin to disappear? According to official court filings and verified reporting, the Eliza Fletcher investigation reached its most consequential phase when forensic testing confirmed DNA links between the victim and the suspect. Police confirmed that biological evidence recovered during the investigation was submitted for expedited analysis. This was not routine testing. It was prioritized because the case had already crossed from suspicion into formal charges. There's a heavy gravity when science speaks without emotion. According to prosecutors, DNA belonging to Eliza Fletcher was identified on items connected to Cleotha Henderson. In parallel, forensic material linked Henderson to locations central to the case. Police stated that this evidence did not rely on interpretation. It relied on laboratory certainty. The match established physical contact in a way no timeline or camera angle could. That moment shifted everything. Authorities explained that DNA evidence carries unique legal weight because it bridges presence and action. According to reports, the results strengthened probable cause and supported the escalation of charges. Investigators emphasized that this confirmation aligned with existing digital and physical evidence, forming a complete evidentiary chain rather than a single point of proof. For the family, this confirmation carried a different meaning. It did not bring comfort. It brought finality to questions no one wanted answered. Court documents later revealed that forensic testing also ruled out alternate theories that had circulated early in the investigation. According to prosecutors, no unidentified DNA profiles were present that suggested additional unknown actors at the primary locations examined. This clarification narrowed the scope of defense arguments before they were even raised. One question remained unavoidable. Could this evidence stand under full judicial scrutiny? According to legal analysts cited in public reporting, DNA evidence often becomes the backbone of prosecution strategy because it is difficult to challenge without introducing reasonable doubt elsewhere. In this case, officials stated that the forensic findings were supported by chain of custody documentation, laboratory accreditation, and repeat verification. This was not a single test. It was a process. From a human perspective, the science feels cold. From an investigative perspective, it feels decisive. In my opinion, this is where the case truly solidified. Before DNA, the story relied on alignment. After DNA, it relied on proof. The narrative stopped asking what might have happened and began documenting what could be demonstrated in court. Police confirmed that following the forensic confirmation, investigative focus shifted almost entirely to prosecution preparation. Search efforts ended. Evidence review intensified. Every detail was now evaluated for how it would be presented to a jury. As this section closes, the meaning of DNA becomes clear. It did not solve the emotional loss. It did not ease the pain. But it transformed the case from a question into a record. What are your thoughts on the role of DNA in modern investigations? Do you believe science alone is enough to deliver justice, or does it always need a broader context? Share your perspective below and stay with us, because the next chapter examines how this evidence reshaped the legal path forward. When evidence narrows the path, why does the search suddenly grow wider? According to official briefings, once digital and forensic indicators aligned in the Eliza Fletcher case, investigators made a deliberate decision to expand search operations beyond the original scene. Police confirmed that the focus shifted from immediate recovery to locating secondary sites connected to the suspect's documented movements. This change signaled a difficult reality. The outcome investigators feared was becoming more likely. There is a heavy dread when a search no longer asks if, but where. Authorities stated that teams moved quickly to areas tied to vehicle data and prior patterns. According to reports, these included industrial zones, undeveloped land, and locations with limited visibility. The reasoning was clear. Digital movement showed stops that could not be explained by routine travel. Those pauses became priorities. Public assistance became essential at this stage. Police confirmed that residents were asked to report anything unusual, even details that seemed minor. According to investigators, several tips helped validate search locations, not by adding new theories, but by confirming timelines. Witnesses stated they noticed activity only after learning what to look for. That awareness changed the effectiveness of the search. One unsettling question followed every update. How many places had already been passed without knowing? Search operations intensified with specialized units. Officials confirmed the use of ground teams, aerial support, and forensic mapping. This was not random coverage. It was targeted. According to police, each area was selected based on evidence, not hope. That distinction mattered because it prevented the investigation from drifting. Emotionally, this phase carried a different weight. Hope did not disappear. It transformed into resolve. Later updates clarified why the search widened instead of narrowed. According to law enforcement, once a suspect's path is known, investigators must account for every potential divergence. One mislocation could compromise the case. That pressure shaped decisions that appear expansive but were, in fact, precise. In my opinion, this is one of the most difficult moments for any investigation to communicate. The public sees expansion as uncertainty. Investigators see it as discipline. Searching more places does not mean knowing less. It often means understanding more. Officials confirmed that public cooperation remained high during this phase. Tips were filtered carefully, cross-checked against evidence, and logged systematically. According to reports, most were eliminated quickly, but a few reinforced existing conclusions. That reinforcement strengthened confidence without altering facts. As this section closes, the meaning of the expanded search becomes clear. It was not about casting a wider net. It was about closing every open door. The investigation was preparing for what came next, legally and emotionally. What do you think drives investigators to widen a search even when a suspect is already identified? Share your thoughts respectfully below and stay with us, because the next chapter confronts what the search ultimately revealed and how it reshaped the case forever. When the search ends, how does truth finally arrive? And why does it hurt more than uncertainty? According to official police statements, the search in the Eliza Fletcher case reached its most devastating moment when investigators located human remains in an area connected to the suspect's documented movements. Police confirmed that the discovery was made after targeted search operations narrowed in on a location identified through digital and forensic analysis. This was no longer a search driven by hope. It was guided by evidence. There is a particular silence that follows this kind of finding. It is the sound of answers arriving too late. Authorities stated that the area was immediately secured and treated as a recovery site. According to reports, forensic teams worked carefully, knowing that every detail would matter for both the investigation and the family. Officials emphasized that identification was not rushed. It followed protocol, verification, and confirmation through scientific methods. Police later confirmed what many feared. The remains were identified as Eliza Fletcher. At that moment, the case changed forever. According to law enforcement briefings, family members were notified before the information was released publicly. Officials described the interaction as private and deliberate. No cameras, no statements at first, just the weight of confirmation delivered behind closed doors. The family asked for privacy, and authorities respected that request. For the community, the shift was immediate. Hope did not fade gradually. It stopped. Public reporting noted that vigils formed quietly, without coordination. People gathered not to ask questions, but to acknowledge loss. According to witnesses, there was a shared understanding that something irreversible had been confirmed. The search for Eliza ended. The responsibility to honor her life began. From an investigative standpoint, the discovery provided critical recovery evidence. Police confirmed that findings of the location aligned with the existing timeline and forensic record. According to prosecutors, this strengthened the legal foundation of the case by confirming sequence, location relevance, and suspect connection. But legally sound evidence does not soften emotional truth. In my opinion, this is the hardest chapter to witness in any investigation. Uncertainty, while painful, still leaves room for imagination. Confirmation removes that space. It demands acceptance. For the family, for investigators, and for the public, the story reached its emotional peak here. Authorities later stated that the discovery allowed them to finalize certain investigative steps and shift fully into prosecution mode. Search operations concluded. Evidence documentation intensified. The case tone became quieter, heavier, and more deliberate. As this section closes, one reality remains. The discovery did not bring relief. It brought truth. And truth, in this case, carried grief. What do you think communities owe families after a tragedy like this is confirmed? Share your thoughts respectfully below and stay with us, because the next chapter examines how this confirmation reshaped the legal path and the pursuit of justice that followed. When medical facts replace speculation, what does closure truly mean? According to official statements released by the medical examiner, the investigation into Eliza Fletcher reached its point of factual finality with the completion of the autopsy report. Police confirmed that the examination established a clear cause of death, allowing investigators and prosecutors to formally close unanswered medical questions that had remained since the recovery. There is a deep stillness when science delivers answers no one hoped to hear. According to reports, the medical examiner determined that Eliza Fletcher died from injuries sustained during the crime. Authorities confirmed that the findings were consistent with evidence already collected at search locations and through forensic analysis. This confirmation mattered because it aligned medical conclusions with the existing timeline, location data, and DNA evidence already on record. Police emphasized that the autopsy did not introduce contradictions. It reinforced what investigators already believed. Officials also clarified that certain details in the report were intentionally withheld from public release. According to law enforcement and prosecutors, this decision was made to protect the integrity of the legal process and to respect the family. Not every medical detail serves a public interest, especially when a case is moving toward prosecution. For the family, the report carried a different weight. It ended uncertainty. It began a different kind of grief. According to public reporting, family members were briefed privately before any summary information was shared. Authorities described the process as careful and humane. No timelines were rushed. No conclusions were announced without confirmation. This approach reflected the seriousness of the findings and the permanence of their meaning. One question naturally emerged among observers. Why does cause of death matter so much legally? According to legal experts cited in reporting, autopsy conclusions anchor criminal charges by defining the nature of the crime. They clarify intent, severity, and sequence. In this case, Prosecutors confirmed that the medical examiner's findings directly supported the charges already filed. The case was no longer built on inference. It was built on record. From an investigative perspective, this marked completion. From a human perspective, it marked finality. In my opinion, this is the quietest but heaviest chapter of the entire case. There are no new suspects, no new searches, no unanswered medical questions. What remains is responsibility and accountability. The facts are no longer moving. They are set. Police confirmed that after the autopsy report was finalized, investigative efforts fully transitioned into courtroom preparation. Evidence presentation, expert testimony, and procedural review became the focus. The case entered its final legal form. As this section closes, one truth stands firm. The autopsy did not tell the story of who Eliza Fletcher was. It told the truth of how her life ended. And while facts can close a case, they can never close a loss. What do you believe matters most once a case reaches this stage? Punishment, remembrance, or prevention? Share your thoughts respectfully below, and stay with us as we move into the final chapter, where the focus turns from evidence to accountability and legacy. When a case feels complete on paper, why do certain gaps still matter? According to verified reporting, even after arrests, forensic confirmation, and medical findings in the Eliza Fletcher case, investigators acknowledge that not every moment could be reconstructed with certainty. The record is strong, but it is not total. Some minutes remain undocumented. Some actions are inferred rather than observed. That reality is not failure. It is the limit of evidence. There is a quiet reflection that follows legal certainty. It asks not what happened, but how fully it is understood. One unresolved area involves small gaps in the timeline between confirmed digital points. Police confirmed that cameras and phone data captured much, but not everything. According to reports, there are brief intervals where movements are known only by inference. Investigators stated these gaps do not weaken the case legally, but they remain part of the public's questions. Another area concerns investigative limits. Officials confirmed that some evidence was never recovered, either because it no longer existed or could not be conclusively linked. According to police briefings, absence does not equal doubt, but it does shape how the story can be told. Some details remain outside the record by necessity, not choice. For families, these gaps can feel heavier than confirmed facts. According to public statements, law enforcement chose not to release certain investigative materials. The reason was procedural, not secretive. Police stated that some information remained sealed to protect the integrity of prosecution and to prevent misinformation. That restraint builds trust in court, even if it frustrates public curiosity. One question continues to surface. Could anything have been prevented? Investigators have not publicly stated that warning signs were missed. According to reports, there was no indication of prior contact between the victim and suspect that would have triggered earlier intervention. That conclusion matters, because it frames the case as an abrupt act rather than prolonged failure. From a broader perspective, public questions also extend beyond the individual case. How safe are routine paths? How effective are cameras when seconds matter? According to experts cited in reporting, these are societal questions, not investigative ones. They exist beyond verdicts. In my opinion, this chapter is about honesty. A strong case does not require pretending every answer exists. Credibility grows when limits are acknowledged. The evidence answered the legal questions. It did not answer every emotional one. Police confirmed that once a case enters prosecution, investigative curiosity must give way to procedural discipline. That shift leaves some questions unanswered by design. The law demands clarity, not completeness. As this section closes, one truth stands out. Justice does not erase uncertainty. It defines responsibility. The unanswered questions do not undermine the case. They remind us that truth is often larger than what can be proven. What unanswered question stays with you the most after hearing this case? Share your thoughts respectfully below, and stay with us as we move into the final chapter, where the focus turns from what we know to what this case leaves behind. When a courtroom reaches a conclusion, what remains unfinished for a community? According to verified court records and official statements, the criminal case arising from the death of Eliza Fletcher has reached its legal conclusion. Prosecutors confirmed that the defendant entered a guilty plea to the most serious charges connected to the abduction and killing. The court imposed a sentence that ensures permanent removal from the public. From a legal standpoint, the case is closed. There is a sober weight to hearing the words "case closed." They end a process, not a loss. Authorities stated that with the plea and sentencing, no trial was required and no further evidentiary disputes remain. According to reports, the decision spared the family from prolonged courtroom proceedings and removed uncertainty about verdicts or appeals. Law enforcement described the outcome as definitive and final under state law. The record is complete. The accountability is formalized. Police confirmed that all investigative files are now sealed as concluded, with no outstanding suspects or unresolved charges. Officials emphasized that the evidence presented met the highest legal standard and that the resolution reflected the strength of the case built through surveillance, digital forensics, DNA, and medical findings. For the family, closure carries a different meaning. According to public statements released after sentencing, the family acknowledged the outcome while asking for continued privacy. They did not frame the moment as justice restoring what was taken. They framed it as the end of a chapter they never chose to open. One question remains for many observers. What does this case change beyond the courtroom? In the months following the legal conclusion, public reporting noted renewed discussions around early morning safety, campus area patrols, lighting, and the role of technology in rapid response. According to city officials, some operational reviews were conducted, not because errors were found, but because the case exposed how quickly routine can become risk. From a broader perspective, the impact is lasting. In my opinion, this is where responsibility shifts from institutions to memory. The justice system did what it is designed to do. It identified, proved, and punished. What it cannot do is restore life or erase fear. That work belongs to communities, families, and policy choices made afterward. Police confirmed that no further updates will be issued in this case unless required by law. The investigation is formally complete. The file is closed. The sentence is active. As this final section ends, one truth deserves to be stated clearly. The case may be finished, but the meaning of Eliza Fletcher's life is not defined by its ending. She is remembered as a teacher, a mother, a runner, and a presence that mattered. What do you believe is the most important legacy a case like this should leave behind? Safer systems, stronger laws, or deeper empathy? Share your thoughts respectfully below, and thank you for staying with us through this entire investigation.